Good morning, everybody. It's your favorite aspiring revolutionary here, a wandering author, reminding you that we are all the authors of our own lives. Got my trusty sidekick, Maddie here, Madeline the Intrepid Explorer, and today we're going to move on from the archaic age in Greece once and for all into the classical age by shifting our focus from the pre-Socratic philosophers to Socrates himself, where the term pre-Socratic and Socratic philosophers comes from in the first place. Anyways, as always, my message remains the same: spend less, live more, earn more freedom with frugality. And yeah, so let's get into it. How are you guys doing today? Now, one thing that we all have to keep in mind when we talk about Socrates is that he was notoriously #ugly. So he must have had some bright ideas for him to have such a large impact, right? If he was also ugly. Now here's a good quote. By all means marry. If you get a good wife, you'll become happy. If you get a bad one, you'll become a philosopher. Socrates. #relevant. Yeah, no, definitely that could tell you something about why I'm such a philosopher myself nowadays. What did you find, Madeline? Most well known for the Socratic Method, Socrates is remembered through texts left behind by his students, such as Plato and Xenophon, because he never committed any of his own ideas down to paper. Yet, his influence still permeates Western culture. So again, this dude did not write anything. I did not know that about Socrates. At least, nothing that survived to today. And another big thing, he didn't labor for a living. He basically got an inheritance and then spent his life philosophizing. Athenians killed him in 399 BCE for impiety and corrupting the youth. Again, #classic populism. Just as interesting as his philosophy is what this says to us about the people of Athens. They killed the guy. Now, again, he didn't write anything down, but we can piece together some of his early life. The historian Xenophon and his student Plato. You may recognize that name. He's one of the most influential Western philosophers of all time. So, Socrates, according to Xenophon and Plato, was born sometime around 469 BCE. His parents were relatively well off, and his dad was a stoneworker, or a gem engraver, and his mom was a midwife. He inherited part of his father's estate and was able to live a life relatively free of financial worries. But he did serve in the military during the Peloponnesian War, which we'll start talking about tomorrow. Sources portray Socrates as a man of principle. So, for example, when ordered to arrest Leon the Salaminian by this group called the 30 Tyrants, who were ruling Athens at the time, Socrates was the sole abstainer, and he was the one that was willing to risk the wrath of the Thalos' tyrant. To me, again, I put the information about him living a life relatively free of financial worries before that because I think it's easier to stick to your principles if you don't have to worry about your finances, right? As we'll see later on this week, Eastern philosophies emphasize how much our environment influences us. And it's kind of prevalent in Western thought too, with the whole nurture thing. But if you don't have to take a job, you don't have to put yourself in situations with influences you would rather not take care of, right? And I don't know, if I've seen some memes online about how, if people don't have to worry about money, it's often the case that they become artists. Well, sometimes it looks like they become philosophers. As we shall see, Socrates lived in a tense political climate, and Athens was ruled by an oligarchic group called the 30 Tyrants, like I just said. He was notoriously ugly, but he still attracted great attention in Athens, particularly among the youth. Eventually he'd be summoned to court and charged with corrupting the youth and not worshiping the state religion, so impiety. The jury rejects his defense and convicts him, but literally, Socrates during the trial, this is very famous, recorded, he claims that he was God's gift to Athens and suggested that the city pay him and cover the cost of his meals. After he's convicted, he decides not to leave the city, even though he's got friends and stuff that are willing to get him out. So again, standing for his principles. And one of the Socrates' strangest traits was that he neither labored for a living or participated in the affairs of state. So again, a lot of times people who had money, or they didn't have to work, what they would do instead is participate in the state, like the government back then. That was really what differentiated the two classes, like the laboring class and then like the political class at the time. Similar to today in many ways, but Socrates kind of lived outside of that system. He was a trailblazer, so to speak. Instead, he embraced poverty. According to Plato's book, Apology, he refused to call himself a teacher or accept money for what he did. Again, if he had been forced to accept money, if he didn't have if that was the only thing that changed, would we remember him? I don't know. Socrates regularly employed, and another thing that tells us is we know that what he did was what he wanted to do, because he didn't do it for money, right? Socrates regularly employed his characteristic method of refutation, which is known to us as the Socratic Method, in his dialogues. In general, it follows a two-step perfect formula, #ideal. 1, Socrates talks to a subject matter expert, what we would call today a subject matter expert. And then through dialogue and questions, he proves that the expert doesn't actually know what they're talking about, or at least that he holds contradictory beliefs. And generally, he's going to be challenging the commonly held views. And on top of that, he was never somebody that tried to tell them the answers. He more was like, I don't know anything. He's very famous for saying, the only thing that I know is that I know nothing. Now, I thought this line of his during his trials was pretty funny. I thought Evenus a happy man. If he really possesses this art, techne, and teaches for a moderate fee, certainly I would pride and preen myself if I knew these things, but I do not know them, gentlemen. He was on trial. He was questioning somebody about they had murdered their father or something like that. He also spread the belief that the first step toward true wisdom is the acknowledgement of one's own ignorance. Socratic irony, yeah, it is not any random person who can prosecute their father correctly, but surely one who is already far progressed in wisdom. He's famously known for employing irony during his dialogues. And then two final things. One we talked about in many other perspectives, eudaimonia. So eudaimonia is what motivates all human action, according to Socrates, whether directly or indirectly. However, two views exist regarding the connection between virtue and knowledge. One is the identical thesis, and it says that Socrates saw virtue and knowledge as one and the same. But the other one is the sufficiency thesis, which says that you can't really be virtuous unless you have the knowledge first. Personally, I kind of think that more of the sufficiency thing. I feel like virtue is more of an action-based thing, like Aristotle. That's what Aristotle says, but that's also what my gut says. For Socrates, the only reason a person would not be good is because they lack knowledge. That I kind of also agree with. But I think a lot of it has to do with disruptive humors is what they would call it, or, emotions. Now, Socrates' legacy. He had an immediate and profound impact on philosophy, and apart from the Epicureans and the Pyrrhonists, pretty much every strain of Western philosophical thought after him can trace its roots back to him. Plato's Academy, Aristotle's Lyceum, the Stoics, and the Cynics all claim him as their ideological predecessors. So he's had a massive impact on everybody's day-to-day life just through those influences. Since he did not leave behind any personal writings, interpretations of his views have varied greatly, but he is considered to be the one responsible for shifting philosophy's focus from the natural world to human affairs. Remember, the pre-Socratics kept asking about the arche, or like the underlying physical principle of the universe. What is stuff made of? In some ways more scientific. Socrates kind of brings us to the realm of social sciences by starting to use his Socratic method of questioning and getting us to, interrogate our commonly held views. And he had a massive impact, obviously, or we wouldn't be talking about him today. His immediate followers rapidly diverge in doctrines, though. Two of his direct students are Antisthenes, who had a contempt for material goods, kind of a minimalist, a little along my lines, but also another one of his direct students, Aristippus, endorsed wealth accumulation and basically founds the school of hedonism. So he has had a diverse impact, to say the least. Anyways, that's all I've got for you guys today as far as Socrates. I've been doing more paid writing and just kind of brainstorming what I want to do from here. I really think that I gotta start knocking on doors. Actually, it's a lot of fun. So, at least for a little bit. What I want to do long term is buy a small house where I can call it my own. But I also don't want to put myself into a situation where I'm struggling to make ends meet. I want to have the freedom to do some creative, even if I can't be like Socrates and just totally. I want to have some freedom to do some creative stuff. So, look at Maddie back there. It's a cute dog. Anyways, I have been skateboarding quite a bit and going to the gym and cooking all my meals, nourishing on a dime, all that stuff. As always, my message remains the same: spend less, live more, earn your freedom with frugality. What are you guys doing in order to inspire, uplift, and empower your local communities today? Because this world isn't changing unless we all do our part. You can count on me to do mine daily. Till next time, love y'all.